What is going on, everybody? I am Jamie Shaw. I am joined by my co-host, Coach Scott Spinelli. We are on The Breakdown. Scott, how's it going today?
Excellent, Jamie. Glad to be here again. And again, thanks to Dana Barros Basketball Club for allowing us to come in and produce and direct the show. Dana, Travis, Stephanie, and Austin for opening the doors this morning. Nice to see you, Jamie.
Before we jump into our next team, North Carolina, let's first introduce ourselves, let the people know who they are listening to. My name, Jamie Shaw, National Recruiting Analyst, Rock.com, senior writer for Heat Check College Basketball. Also, I have one of the largest, most sought-after NCAA-compliant scouting recruiting services in the country. Scott, tell them about yourself.
So, Jamie, I've had a chance to coach at every level of basketball. And, along the way, during this podcast and obviously all these shows, we'd like to share some of the real experiences that occurred, starting from when I was a head prep school coach, all the way up the ranks through the Division I ranks, the minor league ranks, the NBA ranks, to where we are today. So, with that said, there is a special, story that it relates to North Carolina. I know today is a North Carolina preview, and at some point I'd love to talk to you a little bit about that.
Yep, and as you mentioned, today we're going to jump into for our fifth installment, University of North Carolina. But before we jump into them, I ask that you, the listener, go ahead and take a look back at the 4 previous installments that we have. Go ahead and subscribe to our channel, wherever you're listening to it at, whether it be the podcast or on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe to us, rate it 5 stars, and give the previous installments a listen as well. This is our 5th one, as we mentioned, with UNC. Jumping into UNC, though, they have a ton of tradition. You have Roy Williams, who won 3 national titles there, went to 5 Final Fours, 485 wins over 18 years, 16 to 17 tournaments. He went to Dean Smith previously before that, 2 national titles, 11 Final Fours. They've had some great coaches, Hall of Fame coaches even. Now they are on to Hubert Davis, who is in year 1 of his regime. Hubert's taking over a team that finished 18-11 overall last year, 10-6 in the ACC. You, Scott, first-year head coach last year at Boston College when you took over the interim spot to finish the season out with them. What is Hubert Davis looking forward to, or what can he expect being a year 1 head coach and taking on the ACC?
The experience that, Coach Davis has had, working on staff with Coach Smith and all the other, coaches over the years have prepared him for this opportunity. I think sometimes, there is this big to do in terms of an assistant moving over to a head coaching position. But when you're experienced and you've been around the block and you've actually come up the ranks and you've had a chance to learn under such great mentors as Coach Williams, Coach Davis, I'm sure the transition won't be nearly as difficult as it would be, for some other coaches who are, again, a lot less experienced. Coach Williams has done an unbelievable job at North Carolina. He's somebody that from afar, somebody like myself has just admired, learned quite a bit in watching their teams over the years. And again, Jamie, Coach Davis is going to step in. He's going to do a remarkable job without question. And he's surrounded by such a great staff who all have North Carolina pedigree. And there's something to be said about that. Winning there, means even that much more for Coach Davis and all those guys, because they've given up so much of their energy. They've put in their sweat to build that program as players. A lot of them have been in the system before too. So I think, with Coach Davis and all the Carolina guys behind him, I don't think the transition is going to be nearly as big a deal as maybe some others may think.
To help kind of ease that transition, for Coach Davis in year 1, he returns North Carolina's leading scorer and rebounder from last season in Armando Bacot, originally from Richmond, Virginia. He's entering this season having averaged 12.3 points, 7.8 rebounds, 62.8% from the field last year. And it appears that Armando is going to be the focal point, build around what he's able to do. Tell us a little bit. I know that you had to coach against some scheme against him. You've seen tons of film on Armando. What do you expect from him this season under year 1 from Hubert Davis?
Well, Armando, has shown great improvement. I think sometimes you come in, as a freshman and, you've got to adjust to so many different things. The speed of the game, the physicality, specifically as it relates to the the ACC. And then, you combine that with being a freshman and, the academic side, the social side, living away from home. But you saw, Armando take huge strides last year as the season went on. And, he's a physically, strong, well-built kid, great athlete, exceptional hands. And he's a guy that you saw his skill development last year, really improve. One thing about North Carolina over the years, Jamie, is they've developed so many players along the way. And they've got a great formula in doing so. And, in Armando's case, his skill set, has developed his ability to pass, shoot, and then to score at some different areas, the mid post area, even that high post area, as well as in the interior, was so noticeable and on full display last year as the season went on. But I mean, he's going to have a great year this year. And he'll be that guy, I think, that comes in, especially in the front court with a lot of the guys they lost, to be that focal point and that staple to the North Carolina front court this year.
And in talking about North Carolina's ability to develop players, they also returned their starting point guard from last year. Caleb Love came in. He was a freshman last year. He came in as a 5-star recruit, and he took a little bit of a time to get adjusted to the college game. He did average 10.5 points per game, but he had a 3.6 to 3.1 assist to turnover, and then shot 31.6% from the field. He had stretches toward the end there where he was really starting to get a hold of things. He will again be the unquestioned point guard for this team. What does UNC need from Caleb Love in order to kind of fulfill the aspirations that they have for their team this season?
Well, Caleb Love is a, incredible talent. And again, transitioning for any freshman, especially, coming into the ACC and the way Carolina plays. I mean, if you were to ask, and you'd probably, know this just as well as I do, Jamie, when you're on the road and you're visiting with recruits, every kid, for the most part, wants to play in a system like Carolina's, where it's fast, pace system on both ends of the floor, where they're trying to increase possessions, against every opponent. And, for any freshman, Caleb included, a 5-star, tremendously talented kid, there is a little adjustment period. However, you saw flashes last year. I mean, he scored in double figures. He was a kid that, for the year, for the season, did have a positive assist to turnover. It was just within the ACC that, again, teams are scouting you now. And, you're coming in and you're kind of being somebody that they're trying to, kind of heat up on the ball, especially being a freshman. And I'm sure he's going to take a monster jump and be that point guard that, matches the talent level in which he has for them this year. Again, expect big things out of Caleb Love this year at the point for Carolina.
You mentioned the fast pace and the speed with which UNC is known to play about. Last season, they were third in ACC play, 75 points per game. They were first in ACC play, 16.9 assists per game. Take us a little bit through their offensive identity and what it is that UNC has tried to do, some staples of the UNC offense, and then show us some examples of how they play on offense.
Well, yeah. And Jamie, first, before we get into the actual sets, let's just talk about, how they recruit the type of player that really, fits their system. That's the one, constant that we've seen thus far in every ACC, preview that we've done, is how important it is for the players to be system fits, we call them, within the style of play. Without further ado, let's get into this offensive identity and show Carolina's transition. On this first clip, you're going to see on a missed shot how quickly they all run the floor. And again, we talked about recruiting, and I don't think young players today really understand how hard they have to run every possession. And in this clip, you'll see the Carolina offensive player who has the ball, his head is up. Carolina's players are all running their lanes, and you'll see the pitch ahead with the actual ball touch the floor on one dribble. And this is sort of like drill work. And he catches it, and he's sprinting to the front of the rim first guy down the floor. It happened not even to be a big in this case, but he was so open because he ran hard, straight line. We talk about, great cutters play and cut in straight lines. And this was a great straight line cut to the front of the rim. And again, those easy baskets are what's made Carolina who Carolina's been in terms of a team that puts up huge points game in and game out over the last several years. In this next clip, you're going to see after a free throw miss. And, notice the guard here rebounds the ball and how quickly they get out and run their lanes. And you can see in this case, the point guard who rebounded it here, his head goes up right away. And all 5 Carolina guys are sprinting. And notice they're looking to pitch ahead, which again, anytime you can advance and transition with the pass as opposed to the dribble, it gets there faster and it puts more pressure on the defense. Carolina is obviously well drilled. This to me is just drill work and excellent coaching. So the ball gets up, 2 dribbles, pitch ahead, 1 dribble. And you can notice the 5-man there. He's running, again, that straight line rim run right to the front of the rim. And he shows that target. Again, going back to Carolina over the years and Coach Smith and Coach Guthridge, that was another thing that a lot of coaches, including myself, really kind of learned watching Carolina is to really present that hand for a target, asking for the ball and where to throw it. And that's a great communication thing. It's a little thing, but it's something that Carolina does exceptionally well. And in this case, you'll see Kessler right to the front of the rim, easy basket on a missed free throw. This next clip, again, on a missed shot, you'll see that everyone in Carolina here, is getting out and running their lanes. And what I find to be really, fun in terms of watching Carolina over the last several years is when whoever gets the rebound, whether it's a big or whether it's a guard, is how quickly they understand their role, in the sense that in this case, it's a guard that's rebounding. And look at his head. His head goes up right away. And, he's looking, he's been so well drilled to get a rebound, to make sure that his head goes up right away to see who in his team might be open. And in this case here, he takes 1 dribble. He pitches ahead, to the other guard in Carolina who's running his lane wide. And you can see the first big to Carolina is running right to the front of the rim. So now the NC State defender has to protect the basket. Again, we talk about those rules in transition. We've mentioned this on previous podcasts. In transition defense, for all coaches and young players, your responsibility is first to protect the rim. Your second responsibility is to make sure you stop the ball. Your third responsibility is to find dangerous people. And again, last but certainly not least, is to make sure your bigs are engaged in the post and not giving them a free straight line run to the paint or to the rim. In this case here, Carolina pitches ahead. You see the limited dribbles because of that big putting pressure on the bottom defender for NC State. They do a great job of changing sides of the floor. And on this case, it's a pass. And you can see how wide open he is. There's nobody that can get to that shot. So again, Carolina, what they've done, very well in transition is they run for layups first. And if the opportunity presents itself, they will pitch it ahead. And if those guys, those dangerous people that we talk about are open behind the 3, they'll catch and shoot in rhythm. Excellent possession there for Carolina. On this shot here, you're going to see, what we've kind of known to be the Carolina break. I can't tell you how many years, as I've been in this profession, whether I was a prep school head coach, whether I was a college assistant, whether I was a college interim head coach, that I've seen so many teams, run this, what you call Carolina break, what Coach Smith and Coach Guthridge made famous over the years. And you see it in high schools all over the country. Teams call it Carolina. And when they call it Carolina, this is exactly what it looks like. Okay. It's a 4-out, 1-in type, secondary action where the post guy is, really kind of following the ball, chasing the ball. And you'll see here on the ball reversal from the guard to the big high, the low big chases the ball and occupies his man by posting hard. Now, this is what makes the Carolina break so difficult to guard, in that when that guard comes up and sets this back screen, you can notice the Carolina offensive players on the wing, both are free throw line or above. And so therefore, there's not a lot of weak side help. So if this guard's defender, for Clemson in this case, doesn't engage or bump that big guy or impede his progress of getting his path, it becomes now where there's no weak side help. And it's a real easy opportunity for Carolina just to throw right over the top and finish with an easy basket. That is what we call the Carolina secondary break, where, again, you'll see that run, and it was made famous. It's a legacy that Coach Smith and Coach Guthridge, their names will always be synonymous with that Carolina break. And there's a great example, of what it looks like. In this case here, you'll see the same type of action. And again, this time they don't throw the lob pass, even though they probably had it. But now the guard, will actually, almost like he's posting up there because his defender is not letting him catch it deep, and he catches it. And now you have the ball in the middle of the floor, and you have, the terminology, whether it's a cross screen or lateral screen. I've heard both. It's a big cross screen here. And again, with the ball in the middle of the floor, it causes a little confusion with a great screen set, and they'll throw it in, right to one of their bigs. Over the years, Carolina's played traditionally with two post guys, big guys in six, the 6'8", 6'9", or even the 7-foot range. And so they are looking to really get the ball inside if possible. So again, you got to tip your hat to North Carolina and what they've established in terms of an offensive identity, specifically in these clips we've showed their secondary.
One of the big things about UNC offense, the question marks, I guess, coming into this year is the three-point shooting. Now, they do return Kerwin Walton, the sophomore. He shot 42% from three this past year, scored 8.2 points per game. They also return R.J. Davis, also a sophomore, part of that same class, averaged 8.4 points. And they also, Anthony Harris is coming back after his 16 games last year, 11 minutes per game. These guys will be getting time. We talked about Caleb Love earlier. These guys will be getting time at the 1 and the 2, possibly in Walton's case, maybe playing the 3 a little bit in a small ball lineup and all that. What do we need to expect from this team in order for this UNC program to get the most out of the talent they have on the roster?
Last year, if you looked at, their best 3-point shooter was Walton, and him coming back is going to be something that I think is going to be a huge asset to them, being able to stretch the defense. I mean, Kerwin Walton, shot an exceptional high rate. I think he was around last year, Jamie. I think he was around 42% from the 3-point line. Yep. And, that's a tremendous number. They're going to count on him and all the other guards for that matter. I mean, look at Davis, Anthony Harris, those kids are going to be, counted on to also make shots at the same time. A lot of those guys collectively, can pass, they can dribble, they can shoot. And with the speed in which Carolina plays, and I'm sure Coach Davis is going to continue to play the Carolina way, and that is fast, the depth at that guard position is going to be crucial to them as it relates to the success of this year's team. And there's the talent is there, and everybody's a year older with added individual development. Expect a huge jump in that area for them at the guard spots.
One of the more unique players on their roster, kind of a jack of all trades type of player, Swiss Army knife, Leaky Black, 6'8" junior coming in. He averaged 5.6 points, 4.9 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 1.2 steals per game. Long arms. He's got ball skills. He can defend multiple positions. How does Leaky Black kind of fit into what they have as a team? And how big of a factor will he be this upcoming season for this UNC team?
I'm anxious to see the jump that he's made, Jamie, because, to your point, he does a little bit of everything. And that little bit of everything last year, that, he took that responsibility on, he just wanted to do whatever it took to help Carolina win. And that's the one thing about Leaky Black that's so impressive. If he needs to make shots from the 3-point line, he's going to do that. If he needs to drive the ball, get to the free throw line, finish at the rim athletically, he'll do that. And at the same time, if he needs to make his teammates better, he had for a kid like him who does so many things well in terms of being able to score at all three levels, he also has the rare ability to make his teammates better. So he is a very versatile guard. To your point, Jamie, you could do a lot with him in terms of defensive pressure, switching. I'm anxious to see the jump that he's going to make, because he's the type of kid that could come in and just have, that huge difference maker that, Carolina has been kind of looking for. Leaky has that type of talent, and he has that type of winning mindset that you just love to see as a coach. So, yeah, I think he is destined to be one of those, Carolina special type players.
Off this last year's team, UNC lost 3 of their bigs. Day'Ron Sharpe to the NBA draft, and then Walker Kessler and Garrison Brooks to transfer. With that, they lost 55% of their block shots per game last year, which ranked them 22nd nationally. And they third in total rebounds nationally, and they lost 41% of that. Incoming, however, they brought in the 6'11 sophomore Dawson Garcia from Marquette, 13 points, 35.6% from 3, 6.6 rebounds per game. They also brought in Brady Manick, the super senior out of Oklahoma, 37.5% from 3, 10.8 rebounds, 10.8 points, 5 rebounds per game this season. Obviously, this is looking like a shift, possibly in style of play, maybe going a little bit more spread with the shooting ability that Garcia and Manick have. What do you see from these two players, and how do you see them fitting in to the style of play that UNC is going to have this season?
Jamie, I'm not sure it's as much of a shift as I think, you could kind of look at, only because, they're still going to play the Carolina way, right? Transition, getting up and down. But when you add 2 guys of that size, and I think to your point, they're both exceptionally skilled players. And, you talk about the experience. I mean, Manick, is that what I call that super senior, right? This is his, he's got that extra bonus year this year, the transfer from Oklahoma. He put up, I think as a junior, he was around 14 points per game, and then last year, around 11 or so. But, exceptionally skilled. He's had games at Oklahoma where he's had 8 threes in one game. So he can, at his size, he can really shoot it. He can pass it. He gets up and down the court. Again, we talked about their 3-point shooting last year in terms of a little bit of a lower percentage. He will definitely be a guy in the front court that can make threes, at a high level. And the other side of that, is going to be Garcia. Again, left-handed kid, another skilled, super skilled front court guy. He led all freshmen last year in the Big East in scoring, from Marquette. So he's battle tested right around 13.8, 14 points per game, rebounder also. But, when you add 2 guys with that type of skill, who also have that type of experience, to a front court, that they have a Baycott coming back, you really have a formidable front court now in the ACC. And then, let's not forget about, McCoy coming from Virginia. He's also another formidable front court guy who's versatile. And so, they address that need, with them losing last year. I mean, they lost, Brooks last year, and losing him, I think, they've addressed that. To your point, with some real skilled, experienced bigs. So Carolina's front court, I think, took a huge upgrade in that department.
With the speed in which North Carolina plays, trying to get 70, 75 possessions every single game, how hard is that? Or what does UNC try to do on the other end of the floor throughout the course of the game? And what is their identity? Being known so much for offense, what is their identity on the defensive end?
Their defensive identity, has been this, great pressure, really trying to create offense through their defense. I mean, to get to that 75 possessions per game, which they were, I think a couple of years ago, last year was around 70 or so, they really have to increase possessions during the game, and they've got to get themselves some easy baskets, from their defense creating to easy baskets on offense. So, I think that's the one thing that you'll see with North Carolina when we start showing, some of these defensive clips is, the multiple ways that they can create offense through their defense, the multiple ways where they can increase possessions throughout the game. Because again, if you're, coaching against them, the one thing that you have to be mindful of is this: when you have a team of, year in and year out with the talent level, with the depth that they have, usually a team that has that type of talent and, has that type of depth, if the game has more possessions, it's an advantage and a benefit to that team as opposed to a team that be a little less talented, or a little less in terms of their depth. So Carolina plays to their strength, and that's what they're trying to do. But again, Jamie, I think the one thing that's been really, kind of lost in all of this with North Carolina in terms of how hard and how fast they play on offense is they do get after you defensively. And, you've got to be ready to play against that type of pressure and value the basketball. So without further ado, let me, get into some of these clips here. So this very first possession, we're talking about North Carolina in terms of their pressure on the ball. And again, what they're trying to do is create offense through their defense. In this possession here, you'll see great pressure on the basketball, including their bigs. The Carolina one pass away defenders are trying to deny their offensive man the ball. And look where Notre Dame's having to catch the ball to create, get into their offense. Now it's late clock, and you'll see North Carolina just on a random high ball screen, just trap it. And what they do an unbelievable job of is understanding interceptor, goaltender. So in this case here, you're seeing the North Carolina defender who was furthest from the ball now shoot the gap one pass away. We would call him an interceptor. The strong side guard here that's guarding Jogo in the corner, he'd be the other interceptor. And then you have a goaltender protecting the rim. And this little formula in terms of trap, two interceptors and a goaltender are really standard in North Carolina's defense, whether they're in their man and they trap a ball screen or whether it's in some of the other traps that we're going to see here coming up. In this next possession, you're going to see them make no bones about it. They're just going to run at the ball. And when they run at the ball, again, you're going to see the same shape, two interceptors and a goaltender, where they're denying one pass away strong side. And then you're going to see two pass away, he'll drop and be the goaltender. And again, just trying to create a faster tempo and at the same time to create some offense through their defense. And that's what Carolina has been known for defensively. In this case here, you're going to see a little face guard action, full court, where they're making it hard coming up the floor. And again, you can imagine, you've worked hard to get it up the floor. And now on the first pass, they trap it. The original offensive man, which in this case for Virginia, I believe, I don't know if that's Kyle Guy, but he makes the pass, or Ty Jerome, and you'll see the Carolina defender again, shoot the gap. And it takes the shape once again, interceptor, goaltender, and he just jumps up in the air. And look how fast the ball advances for an easy basket. It never hit the floor. And when you talk Carolina's offense in terms of their secondary, primary, and all the stuff that we've talked about, their defense creates a lot of opportunity for easy baskets, and they're just as good transitioning on a steal or block shot as they are on a Mr. Made shot. In this next possession, you're going to see on a ball screen, a high ball screen, where they just trap it. And again, interceptor, goaltender. And then on the pass up the sideline, they actually stay in the trap. And again, they still stay in that shape where they have interceptor, a great trap, by the way, where their hands are high, their feet are trying to lock. And you can see that trap right there where they're really closing the trap and making it hard for the offensive person to see, or player to see anyone that's open. And, they create another opportunity for them to get an easy basket. You also have to be ready for side out of bounds. So in a side out situation where you expect, you're going to get the ball in bounds and run something, you could see them again, just run at the ball. And, you can see how fast they are at shooting the gaps. And again, trying to create some offense, through their defense is vintage North Carolina as it relates to their defensive identity. Overall, Jamie, when you watch North Carolina, there's a reason why, they score so much, so many points, year in and year out. And they do it on the offensive end. We know that, but they also create a lot of easy basket opportunities through their multiple trap situations defensively, keeping that same shape with 2 interceptors and a goaltender, no matter what trap they're in.
So North Carolina didn't really have to go far to bring in their recruiting class. They brought in 2 top 75 prospects, 6'4", DeMarco Dunn, number 63 ranked player, Rivals.com, from Fayetteville, North Carolina, and they went to Kinston, North Carolina, to pick up number 65 player overall, Dontrez Styles, the 6'6" forward. I know that you've seen these kids play. I know that you go to the film, probably recruit them a little bit as well. What can they expect this year, and what can the North Carolina faithful see from Dontrez Styles and DeMarco Dunn?
Let's start with Dunn, Jamie. I mean, Dunn is a kid that I've seen live. I've seen him on film. Very, very talented young man. A kid that really has a pure 3-point shooting stroke, and is consistently somebody that is going to be a threat, from the 3-point line. He's a guy that you're going to have to defend and find in transition because of his ability to make shots. When you get to Styles, he's kind of that, hybrid forward, can play either of those forward spots. You can play small ball with him. You could play him big. But again, another guy that is, a kid that is, a little bit, maybe not the 3-point shooter yet. And I say that yet because, he didn't have to do as much, or didn't show as much as Dunn has, but we have seen him, quick first step, straight line driver, get to the rim. He was a little bit more skilled than I think people gave him credit for. There were games that, I actually saw him bringing the ball up the floor as a point guard at his size. I think he'll bring some tenacity, some versatility on both ends of the floor, great energy. So yeah, both of those freshmen are going to impact the Carolina program in a very, very positive way on both ends of the floor. Carolina is another potential, sleeping giant this year in the ACC.
During the offseason, Roy Williams, Hall of Famer, announced that his retirement from the University of North Carolina. He'd been on the sidelines for the past 18 years at UNC, 3 national championships at UNC, 5 Final Fours he took them to. He 16 of 17 NCAA tournaments he went to. He was a staple, again, Hall of Famer. What, in your mind, having coached against him and game plan against him for the past 10 years, what is his legacy? What does he mean to the game of basketball, and how did he help grow the game of basketball?
Jamie, let's start first with the loyalty that, has been created in terms of, the Carolina family. Coach Smith was at Kansas, and he was, really, doing unbelievable things at the University of Kansas as the head coach there. And when Coach Smith, he retired, Coach Guthridge had taken over, when the changing of guard came, he actually, the loyalty that he showed in leaving Kansas to come back to where his roots were, that's where he started under Coach Smith, just speaks volumes to the commitment of the Carolina family. And, you can't help from afar to really appreciate that. I think sometimes, you get caught up in, this coach wants to go to that school because, X amount of dollars, there's more money, there's more, it's, better area. But, to me, what really kind of stands out about Coach Smith is the loyalty that, he has shown North Carolina, and, how he's, built his program, within the Carolina family, and the way they've played, they've come in, they've established an identity, especially, again, everybody recognizes the Carolina break. And there was even a time, during Coach Williams' tenure there, that they went to 4 corners, to honor him, when Coach Smith had passed away. Just an unbelievable tribute. The old corner offense that Carolina used to run when they used to spread the floor, when there wasn't a shot clock, and you had Kenny Smith up there and Phil Ford. It isn't just about, the money or the city. It's about, the tradition and, being loyal to your beliefs, your philosophy, and your family. So that really stood out to me, Jamie, when you talked about Coach Williams.
Two things for me, obviously, I'm on the recruiting side of things. I'm on the media side of things as well. So two things to me that stood out about Roy Williams. Obviously, unbelievable coach, the history, the wins, all of that. Thing number one was he was an unbelievable interview. Roy Williams, he needed one take. You ask him the question one time if it was recorded or whatnot, and he would go on, just tell the most incredible, poignant stories. He didn't need any prep time. He didn't need any of that. He would just come down. You would ask it to him. He would take a second and then just answer. His ability to manipulate and maneuver around the media and his friendliness toward the camera was something that I won't forget. As not many people have that like he did. And the second thing kind of goes along with that within his personality. Obviously, going out to recruit players. He was a very recognizable figure. He would have the UNC blue on. It has become such a thing and identity. Carolina blue is now a color. You would see that in the stands, Roy Williams, and he would talk to everybody. People, especially in this region, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, in this region, he would go recruit a player, sit in the stands, and the second the halftime hit, there would be a line out the door to go talk to Roy Williams. He would shake every one of their hands. He would say something to every one of them, take pictures with the kids. He always had time to talk to his fans. He always had time to talk to the people. He wasn't one of those ones that snuck in the back door, left early, or did any of that. He sat among the people on these recruiting trips. And when the game was going on, he was focused. He would watch the entire game and do all that, talk to the kid after the fact or interact in that way. But every single fan that would line up, he would stay until the end, shake their hands, talk to them. He would tell a story about them. Roy Williams had a way to make people feel special when he would interact with them. And that's something that I'll remember about him.
Yeah, that's well said. And again, to your point, Jamie, when this is all said and done, the three national titles and, everything that he's done in terms of winning, the impact that he's made on, as you mentioned, a lot of people and also a lot of coaches. He's been a tremendous, role model because, again, for all of us who are coaching, in the college game, it is about recruiting. You have to put your time in. You have to be in the gyms. And, and again, whether you're in a blue blood like North Carolina or whether you're at a place that, we were at, Texas A&M, it's all about going there and really evaluating and making your own decisions on what players fit, to your style, to the program that you're recruiting to. And I think nobody, put more effort and more time in doing that than Coach Williams. So you got to tip your hat to him there too.
Talk about recruiting. Obviously, it's the lifeblood of any successful program. You had great success in North Carolina. I want to talk about a player that you got to come up to Boston College, turn him into a pro. You brought Kai Bowman up to Boston College. Tell me the story. Take me through the story of how you recruited Kai and how you got him up to Boston College and how he developed into who he is today.
Jamie, that's one of those stories, and every coach has, their recruiting stories when it comes to every player, especially those that go on to be what we would call special NBA type talents. And in Kai's case, here was a young man, from Havelock that I had to, fortunately, I saw him play at the Peach State. He wasn't on the so-called circuit, the sneaker circuit. And I saw him in a little back gymnasium playing for his AAU team, Team Wall. And during that time, we were kind of a little bit unsure on where we were going as it relates to that point guard position. And when I saw him originally, Jamie, there was a young man out there that was just bringing incredible energy on both ends of the floor. You could see that maybe whatever he did not have skill-wise, he made up for it with max effort and energy, played every possession with an incredible motor. At the time, I had no idea that he was a football player, Jamie. I really didn't, but I should have known because some of the passes that he was intercepting and some of the passes that he was catching, as well as him diving for loose balls. He had that physical aggression that I'm sure started through football. And then it came back, all around when I went down there, and we met with their football coaches. They told us the story about, how Kai Bowman was, being recruited by North Carolina in football. And, they wanted him. He was going to go there, and play. He came from a family. His brother was a tremendous football player. And so, the original, plan for Kai was, and this is another, I think another point that for hopefully young viewers or the audience that are listening, and that is every kid has a different path to where they're going. In Kai's case, he was actually set to go play football at the University of North Carolina. And then, something changed. He said, look, I want to play basketball. And so, when I went down and again, we met with the football coaches. I wanted to ask the coach, what was your take on it that Kai quit football or he stopped playing football his senior year? Could you tell me a little bit about him? Did something happen or give me a little background, of the kid? And he looked at me and right into my eyes and he said, hey, coach, I got to tell you, in all the years I've been coaching here at Havelock, I've never had a kid that every player, and I mean every player, voted team captain during his time there. Kai Bowman is a special kid, who, works exceptionally hard, and he's a tremendous role model, for all his teammates and other classmates. Coach, you got a diamond in the rough there, and even though he's not playing football, which I wanted him to do, he's going to have a successful career in basketball. And so from there, Jamie, this is what stood out to me after, and you made reference to this, after all the talent that he showed on the basketball court. I happened to be down there on senior night. And during that game is when, I called, Jim Christian, Coach Christian, it was actually immediately after the game. And I said, Coach, he is our guy. And this is why. So senior night, they introduced, obviously, as we all know, the players, the families. And, this one night they were playing, at Havelock, and it got to Kai Bowman and his family. And when they introduced him and his family, not only did the side that, the home side stand up and really give him an ovation for his efforts during his time at Havelock, the away team, the entire away team's audience, coaches and players stood up and gave him a rousing ovation. That was another interesting story in the recruiting side for Kai Bowman.
Absolutely fascinating. I mean, your recruiting record. I just love sitting and listening to the stories of how you come about, taking these under the radar guys and, seeing them through and trusting your eye in it and taking them through. This is just another example. Kai Bowman down my way. I was very familiar with him as well, but great story. Thank you for that. Unbelievable episode here, guys. That wraps up our episode on the University of North Carolina basketball program for the upcoming season. Make sure, please, that you go back and check out the previous episodes that we have. This is our 5th one. We have Notre Dame, Florida State, Duke, Virginia previously. Make sure you go check them out on whatever platform you're listening to, whether it be YouTube, whether it be on the podcast, wherever you consume your content at. Please also make sure that you rate us 5 stars. If you would leave in the comment section below what you think of this UNC team. I want to hear from you. We want to see what you think about this team, who you think is going to step up. And then rate us 5 stars, and then also share it if you like it, and let us know after you subscribe to the channel. But thank you guys so much for checking in with us. Please continue to stay tuned as we take our path through the ACC. For Coach Scott Spinelli, I am Jamie Shaw. We will see you guys next time.